Welcome back to Sports Night in Quarantine. I'm Andy Hewling. I'm joined by Delaney Barrow. We're going to jump into this week's action in sports, and we're going to start out with an NFL draft recap. We talked about round one last week, but we're going to kind of focus more on rounds 2 through 7, as well as some free agent deals. We'll start directly with Auburn, and a lot of players signed with teams, but also had free agent deals as well. A handful of players who didn't make it in rounds 2 through 7. But Delaney, what were your thoughts on some of the places that the Auburn players are going?
I think that it's super cool to see the teams that got multiple Auburn players and the opportunity that the Tigers have to play together on a completely elite level. Like the Patriots signed Will Hastings and Nick Coe in free agency, and now Hastings is going to have the chance to reconnect with Stidham, who is competing for the starting quarterback job now that Brady went to the Buccaneers. But also, two Auburn Tigers went to the Philadelphia Eagles. That was Jack Driscoll, and also Prince Tega Wanago, and even the Detroit Lions got two Auburn players. And so I think that's super cool just to have them, especially for head coach Gus Malzahn. He gets to see his players that he helped create into who they are and continue to use what they learned on a completely new stage. So I think that's going to be really fun to watch.
Yeah, obviously, Auburn had 9 go in the draft. That was I believe it was seventh in the behind teams like Alabama, LSU, Notre Dame, Ohio State, as far as the amounts of people who got drafted. But also, I read a stat the other day that Gus Malzahn, since he's been at Auburn in 2013 when he came, he's had 32 players get drafted. I think that's a big stat, just showing that he is developing guys who are going to the pros, and getting a chance to play at some elite levels in the NFL. And I think these guys have a great chance to prove themselves. I think two guys I really look at, of course, are Marlon Davidson and Derek Brown. They're going to get to play in the same division with Tom Brady and Drew Brees and Matt Ryan, as well as playing against each other because they're both on the Falcons and Panthers, who are big divisional rivals. So that would be a really interesting matchup to see those two guys go at it, because I guarantee you they're both going to be looking for starting positions.
Yeah, definitely. Especially when Marlon went, I thought that was super exciting for him because Atlanta is not very far from Auburn. So it's not a huge adjustment. And the Falcons are really looking to be on the rise this year. And I think that he could add tons of key skill to the team to really get them to a competing position.
Yeah, I agree. So in this draft, I don't know how much you follow the NFL. What team do you think benefited the most, as far as the picks that they made? I think a lot of people were pointing at the Dolphins. Some said the Ravens. What team do you think pretty much won out of this?
I think, like you said, the Dolphins are going to be a team to watch this year. They got Tua as their quarterback. They drafted some good defensive players and some good, strong players who are going to block for Tua and make their offense very deadly during this upcoming season.
I agree. And Noah Igbenogany, one Auburn player who went in first round in the third, is the 30th pick, will also be in that secondary for them, be vying for a spot on their team. I think the Dolphins will be a team to look out for. So hopefully, for Noah, he can bring his talents down to South Beach. But we're going to hop into some more news from the NBA. Obviously, it's been a really challenging time for professional leagues because they're wondering when they're coming back, or are they going to finish, or just cancel the season. We've seen recently, if you're a follower of European soccer, some leagues are already canceling their seasons over in France and the Netherlands. And I think it's going to kind of give a domino effect towards the Western side of the world, where sports is king in the U.S. And I don't think a lot of people want to cancel the leagues, but it may come to a point where it has to. And this week, the NBA has been rumored to say that they want to cancel their league, but a lot of people are coming out from the league saying that's not true. We want to finish the season. Delaney, how long do you give the NBA and even other leagues before they really have to make the choice to end this season?
At this point, I would give them a month because there's been rumors of NBA training facilities reopening. There's been talks of potentially using the courts at Disney World and the hotels and all the amenities there to continue the season. But like many players have called for, there's going to be a readjustment period so that they can train and get back to where they were before all this started. And that's going to add additional weeks to the timeline. So it gets to a point where you can only push it back so far before it conflicts with the following season. So at this point, I would give them a month before they make the call.
Yeah, I agree. I think just the period that we're at is hopefully we're starting to see this kind of decline. I know in Alabama it is, but excuse me, other places across the country haven't really started to see the numbers go down. So the area in the country we are is a lot less than places like New York or LA, or and those are where a lot of your professional towns are. So I think leagues are going to have to make this decision. And I think a lot of people are saying by June they expect sports to be back, but I don't know how much they can guarantee it just because, there's so much still that we don't know about the numbers and how many illnesses there are. And, some states are starting to open again, and, you may see spikes in the numbers, and, it could get worse again just because people are out and about. But yeah, hopefully, for sports fans, it all, works out and that they're able to play again. But in more news, in the NCAA, they're allowing players to be compensated for their likeness or image. Delaney, do you think that this was time for the NCAA to make this change, or do you think this is more just because of coronavirus and the things that are going on?
I think it's about time that this happened. I think it's a good distinction that they're being paid for endorsement deals and not necessarily by the university. And that's one of the regulations, is that in advertisements, they can't wear school logos. It just has to be generic brand apparel. But I think it's also a way to compete with, in basketball, the rising G League and how many top prospects have already signed there and deciding to forego the college option. And so I definitely think that it's brought up as a way to combat that and keep especially college hoops alive.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, they're trying to protect the academics that go along with college, and I understand why, professional versus college is a hard subject in the sports world, but I agree that this was time that this happened, because there comes a point where I think everyone knows that college sports is one of the most uh, you know fanatical fan bases in the world, really. And I think, when you see people, they live for Saturday. Every college student who loves sports lives for Saturdays for football, or, going to a basketball game if you're like a Duke fan or Kentucky fan or any basketball fan, and I think, people love sports, and that's something that brings the college experience along with it. And it's just, I think these players have come to a point where it's not that they don't care about academics, it's that this is like half their job. And like, if they weren't in sports, they would be doing a normal job like you and I, or anyone else. So I think, I'm all for like not paying them like a professional, but at least giving them something, because they're working very hard for what they do. And it's not easy, especially when you're not getting paid for it. So I think this was the right decision, and the NCAA is making a good point. And hopefully for your video game fans, NCAA football comes back, because it's been now 6 years since the last game. I still have it on my Xbox. And I'd love to see some more updated uniforms and some new technology to that. I think that would be really fun.
Yes, I agree. It definitely is time for NCAA games to make a comeback.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, speaking of that and tournaments and all that good stuff, we are going to hop in to the final four of the Auburn sports bracket. You, the fans, voted again this week on who should make the final four, and we are going to unveil them right now. And I'm about to share my screen. Just give me 1 second. I'm going to make this big. So the final four is set, and we had in the Aubie region the Kick Six and the national title of 2010 made it, and then in the ARIA region we had the final four from 2019 against the Parrot Jordan Hare from 2013. So three football moments, two from 2013, one is from 2010, and then you have the final four. So I kind of expected these three to be left, and or four, excuse me. But yeah, I figured these would be the ones that would make it through. Delaney, what are your thoughts about these two matchups, and who do you think might pull off an upset?
I'm not sure there will be an upset, but I think that in the championship, it's going to be Final Four run versus the Kick Six. But if there is a matchup that could potentially see an upset, I would say it would be the Kick Six versus the title in 2010, just because those are both key moments from Auburn's football history that just are burned into Auburn fans' minds. And I think that if there is an upset, it's going to come from the 2010 title over the Kick Six.
Interesting. I would have I was thinking Prayer Jordan Hare just because that was such a crazy game, but I can see the Final Four run actually being more of a favorite just because of that whole scenario where Auburn had to play three incredibly tough, challenging teams to make it to the Final Four. And that was over a series of games, whereas the Prayer Jordan Hare was just one game, but still means a lot to Auburn fans. So yeah, I'm saying the Kick Six versus Prayer Jordan Hare. I feel like you'll have enough football fans that might vote past the Final Four. Otherwise, I would say the Kick Six versus Final Four because I think those are the two favorites. So what we're going to do with the bracket, and I'll explain it in just 1 second, is what we're going to do is we're going to open up the Final Four voting tomorrow, about tomorrow afternoon, I believe, is when we should have it done. We'll open up the voting for that, and then we'll vote until Tuesday for the Final Four. And then we'll shut down Final Four voting, announce the final two, and then we'll have everyone vote on the final from Tuesday to Thursday. And then once the voting is done on Thursday, we'll announce the winner on our show on Friday for everyone to hear who won. And we'll post that on social media as well, so you can find out who won the bracket. Should be very interesting. And we look forward to announcing the winner next week. So that's going to do it for us. I'm Andy Hewing, joined by Delaney Barrow, and we'll see you guys next week to unveil a winner in the bracket.